J'aimerais ça commencer tout simplement en disant que nous sommes ici, pas pour une bonne raison, c'est-à-dire que quelque chose qu'on doit fêter ou qu'on doit être heureux, pas du tout. On est très, très, très en colère du fait que ce que ces travailleurs et les travailleuses sont en train de faire face avec ce qui nous attend, c'est vraiment quelque chose là, qui nous tient à cœur. Alors, j'aimerais remercier mes collègues du syndicat des métallos. Alors, premièrement, Richard LeBlanc, merci beaucoup. Jocelyn Darnier, il est ici. Merci beaucoup. Ainsi que notre présidente Bea Bruske, la présidente nationale du Congrès du travail du Canada. Je vous remercie du leadership que vous avez fait preuve dans ces temps difficiles. But more important than that, I want to thank workers who are here today. And you can see we have workers with you. They are standing despite the bad news, but we are standing with the workers. We are standing with you. We are fighting with you, and we will fight for you, and we will not stop until we see action from this government, and that's what we're going to be asking. Nous vivons une période charnière dans l'histoire du Canada. Le paysage évolue rapidement et les défis auxquels nous sommes confrontés n'ont jamais été aussi importants. Nous sommes ici parce que, une fois de plus, les travailleurs et les travailleuses payent le prix de l'inaction des gouvernements. The unjustified tariffs imposed by the United States on Canadian steel, aluminum, and more are devastating communities. In just 2 weeks, over 150 jobs have been slashed at Ivaco. That's 150 workers, mothers, fathers, neighbors, who now have to figure out how are they going to pay the bills? How are they going to support the families? And plan for a future that now is really uncertain. And it's not just the workers. When jobs disappear, I don't have to tell you, in a community like Hawkesbury, L'Orignal, local businesses are going to suffer, services are going to decline, and the entire town will feel the impact. Hawkesbury and L'Orignal cannot afford to lose any more. Okay? Aux travailleurs et travailleuses d'Ivaco, à vos familles, à cette communauté, nous vous voyons, nous sommes ici avec vous et on va continuer à nous battre à vos côtés jusqu'à ce qu'on obtienne l'action et le soutien que vous méritez et vous allez en apprendre plus. Alors, je vais passer la parole maintenant à Joey. OK? Et maintenant, Joey va dire quelques mots.
Yes, hi everyone. Actually, my name is Joey Wernicke. He's right there. He's our local president. Yes, it has affected. I work on the mill shop side where we represent 208 workers. The 30 some odd jobs have been canceled as of 2 weeks ago. Everything is up in the air for basically everybody at work and in the community as well. April 2nd will be a big date. There's a lot of anxiety at the plant. Nobody likes to go into the unknown, not knowing. But as far as production, we do have next week where the company was lenient. They scheduled training for the employees, and we're also going to do cleanup in the plant, and also maintenance. We'll do preventive maintenance on the well-deserved preventive maintenance on the equipment. So again, it's a short-term, it's a short leash that we're on, and it is a problem. It is concerning, and I've been through this before. Certainly not with tariffs, but with job loss. So I know that feeling, and we feel for our members. I mean, if anything, me and Jocelyn, what we like to do is sort of a parenting type of a role that we have. So. We have the resources and somewhat of the experience, so we use it. So I mean, it's not fun, but we're standing up. We're standing behind our membership, and for the rod mill as well, for the rod mill side. So
this week or?
You
know.
Well, it's pretty much with this week. All right. Did you want
That's right.
Okay, thank you,
All right.
Richard.
All right. Okay, folks, my name is Richard LeBlanc. I'm with the United Steelworkers. I'm the area coordinator for Eastern Ontario. Premièrement, je veux juste remercier le Congrès du travail du Canada, Bea Bruske, Larry Rousseau, puis toute l'équipe pour s'avoir déplacé aujourd'hui, puis venir donner leur appui aux travailleurs chez Ivaco et les travailleurs au Canada en général. C'est très apprécié. Je veux remercier les gens du local, Joey, Jocelyn, puis les groupes de Raw Mills qui se sont déplacés aujourd'hui. Puis merci à Joey d'avoir donné un compte rendu de la situation chez Ivaco. What I want to talk about myself right now is a little bit about the position of the United Steelworkers and how we see these tariffs. So the United Steelworkers is denouncing Donald Trump's latest reckless and escalation in trade war tactics with the U.S. government imposing tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum imports. These measures effective today are industry killer that threaten the very existence of Canada's steel and aluminum sectors, putting thousands of unionized jobs at risk. This is an economic attack on workers, our industry, and Canadian sovereignty. Ontario is Canada's steel powerhouse with major plants in Hamilton, Sault Ste. Marie, and Nanticoke, being the home of major steel employing thousands and thousands of U.S. members. 90% of Canadian steel exports go to U.S., meaning these tariffs will be devastating for the steel producing communities. Despite being a smaller operation, Ivaco Rolling Mills here in L'Orignal is by far the largest manufacturing operation in the region and a comparable economic powerhouse for its community. The current layoffs and trickle effect of anticipated layoffs will become devastating for the region. These tariffs will choke off demand, putting several hundred good-paying union manufacturing jobs at risk and jeopardy. Canada is the largest aluminum supplier to the U.S., exporting $15.9 billion in 2024. These tariffs will cripple aluminum workers and put thousands more of good-paying manufacturing jobs at risk. Ontario auto sector is deeply integrated with the U.S. trade, with factories in Windsor, Oshawa, Port Colborne, all being at risk. Auto parts cross the border multiple times before final assembly. These tariffs will disrupt production, raise costs, and threaten thousands of USW jobs. Thousands of USW members work in manufacturing plants that rely on affordable steel and aluminum, which these tariffs will make unaffordable. Forestry industry workers, they're already facing softwood lumber tariffs, and they rely on affordable steel and aluminum as well. And these tariffs will be devastating for them, for these communities. The U.S. is the largest market for Atlantic Canada exports, including forestry, shipbuilding, and energy. Tariffs will disrupt these industries and put thousands of workers at risk there also. On the bigger picture, these tariffs extend to downstream products, which will affect even more Canadian industries. Existing tariffs are temporarily paused until April 2nd. But if they take full effect, Canada exports could face 75% total tariffs on steel and 60% tariffs on aluminum. This economic chokehold, could devastate entire communities reliant on these industries. The impact on trade agreements and supply chain, these tariffs violate the USMCA trade agreement, undermining free and fair trade between Canada and the U.S. Canada and the U.S. don't just trade final products. Our economies are integrated, meaning these tariffs will hurt U.S. businesses and workers too. Nearly 50% of all Canada, U.S. trade is intra-company trade, meaning tariffs don't just hit foreign competitors, they hit American and Canadian businesses alike. Retaliatory tariffs from Canada are inevitable, and full-blown trade war could cause economic devastation across North America. USW is fighting back. We are demanding immediate action from our governments. Canada must fight back with full force. The United Steelworkers is calling on federal government to implement real worker protections immediately, wage subsidies, and enhance employment insurance for all affected workers. Support for industries impacted by tariffs, including steel, aluminum, auto, manufacturing, and forestry. Prioritizing domestic procurement, ensuring that Canadian steel and aluminum are used for government infrastructure project is a must. Immediate retaliatory tariffs targeting key U.S. industries and politically sensitive sectors to force the U.S. to reverse these harmful measures. The United Steelworkers is demanding the federal government implement a robust Buy Canadian strategy for all public infrastructure projects. Canada must leverage critical minerals and energy resources to push back against the United States trade aggression. We demand a strong response from our government. USW will not stand by while the U.S. politics threaten Canadian livelihoods. Workers must not pay the price for political gains. United Steelworkers will continue to fight for fair trade, job security, strong protections for workers and their families. The Steelworkers will fight back on the shop floor, in the halls of government, and in the steel and in the streets if necessary. Thank you. Now I'd like to turn it over to Canadian Labour Congress President Bea Bruske.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Richard, for that. And thank you, everyone, for being here today. I quite frankly wish that it was under much better circumstances, but workers here in La Regionale and Hawkesbury are at the forefront of the very real impact of the Trump tariff attack on Canadian workers. The weight of Trump's unjustified and reckless tariffs is being felt right across our communities and right across Canada, including right here in La Regionale, where 120 workers have been laid off, some of which have been laid off permanently, in a town of 1,500 workers. 1,500 people where good, well-paying, unionized jobs are the backbone of this local economy. Families are already struggling, and the local economy is reeling. And why? Because of an unjustifiable trade war that's creating chaos and uncertainty. People are losing their livelihoods because of Trump's economic war on Canada. Families are wondering and worried about whether or not they're going to be able to stay in their homes. Families are worried that it's not just their workplace that will be impacted, but it's going to be the entire community that will feel the ripple effects of economic instability. We've already heard the stress and worry that workers are feeling every day when they're on the shop floor, and the stress and so on that they're taking home to their family every single night. We at the CLC, the 3 million workers that belong to the CLC, we warned government months ago that this would happen. Trump's attacks are reshaping the very DNA of our economy, and we need very strong and decisive leadership to protect Canadian workers at this time. We've met with government officials repeatedly. We've met with Minister McKinnon, Minister of Labour, to lay out what workers need in this environment and from their government. This is not news to our government, and we have to move beyond short-term momentary fixes. We have to make sure that we have strong income supports that keep workers attached to their jobs during times of economic uncertainty. The labour movement has fought for reforms to the employment insurance program for decades, literally decades. And now more than ever, that reform is urgently needed. We can't wait any longer. We need to make sure that we extend EI benefits for those who are already on EI benefits. We need to expand eligibility so more than the 2 in 5 workers that currently qualify for employment insurance. We need to increase the benefit levels. And we also need very targeted supports for industries like steel and aluminum, ensuring job stability and fair wages. Governments have to think bigger and bolder. And they have to think long-term, not just a short-term measure. Canada has to invest in an east-west-north transportation infrastructure, and we need to expand our ports to reduce our reliance on U.S. trade. These investments have the potential to create thousands of jobs and drive the demand for domestic steel and aluminum and stabilize these key industries. To all workers in Canada, my message to you is simple. We stand with you shoulder to shoulder. Canada's unions have your back in demanding better from our federal government. We know that the road ahead is going to be terribly tough, but we're not going to let these attacks from the U.S. defeat us. We're going to work like hell to make sure workers are protected. We're going to have our elbows up, and we're going to stand in solidarity with these workers as we fight for these communities. We're happy to take your questions.
Elbows up.
Well, I think the way we write that, it's sort of still
Okay. Yeah, I'd just like to point out that we had a visit from Mr. Poilievre and his Conservative Party 2-3 days ago at Ivaco, and Richard touched on the steelworker position on trade, and it's ironic and not surprising that he would show up and not one of the 3 locals was aware that when he showed up, because I would have had a few questions for him as well. And he was talking about workers and unfair trade, and this is exactly the same mandate that we had at the Stand Up for Steel conference in April of 2024, where steelworkers from all throughout Canada went to lobby in Ottawa, and not one Conservative MP accepted, was inviting to us at all. And even at the national level, our president, Marty Warren, say Mr. Poilievre was not open to discussion with him. So I find it ironic that he would show up at a steel plant, but yet not surprising that he would not advise our three local presidents to be at his side and having a USW flag behind them. So the Conservatives, while they have their positions, they're not for workers in our agenda. And I think it proved it, because basically what he was talking about is exactly what we were talking about, but apparently it wasn't important back in April, and all of a sudden it is. That's just the ironic part of it. And that 3-point mandate, it was pretty much what Richard talked about. We had a carbon border, suggested carbon border that would be established for any steel coming into Canada would meet certain emissions. We had greater powers to the CBSA agents, which is what Mr. Poilievre talked about heightened security in Canada. And this comes from the Steelworker platform. Also, part of the 3-point platform was using Canadian steel in Canadian infrastructure projects. So the Buy Canadian mandate was already in. So he's selling the product, but he's not really standing behind it. That's from our point of view, and certainly from my point of view. And I think I speak hopefully for everybody here, and I'm pretty sure I. Thank you.
Question?
Monsieur Leblanc, Emmanuel de Radio-Canada, pouvez-vous répéter en français c'est quoi les demandes de votre syndicat pour les gouvernements et de ce que je comprends, c'est le gouvernement fédéral auquel vous demandez s'adresser?
Absolument. Okay, all right. Thank you. Donc, on exige du gouvernement de l'aide immédiate. Le Canada doit riposter avec toute sa force. Les métallos demandent au gouvernement fédéral de mettre en œuvre immédiatement de véritables protections pour tous les travailleurs. Des subventions salariales à l'assurance-emploi améliorées pour tous les travailleurs touchés. Du soutien aux industries touchées par les tarifs douaniers, notamment l'acier, l'aluminium, l'automobile, la fabrication et la foresterie. Donner la priorité à l'approvisionnement national en veillant à ce que l'acier et l'aluminium canadien soient utilisés pour des projets d'infrastructures gouvernementales. Des taux de rétorsion immédiats ciblant les industries américaines clés et les secteurs politiquement sensibles pour forcer les États-Unis à annuler les mesures néfastes. Le syndicat des métallos exige que le gouvernement fédéral mette en œuvre une stratégie robuste achetée canadien pour tous les projets d'infrastructure publique. Le Canada doit exploiter ses ressources minérales et énergétiques essentielles pour repousser l'agression commerciale des États-Unis. Nous exigeons une réponse forte de notre gouvernement.
Ça ressemble un peu à une liste d'épicerie aussi électorale. Est-ce que je me trompe un peu dans ce sens-là?
C'est peut-être une liste d'épicerie électorale, mais élection ou pas au Canada, nous devons faire face à l'agression des Américains présentement et je crois que les demandes seraient les mêmes pour nous en tant que syndicat que nous exigeons de notre gouvernement, peu importe qu'on soit en élection ou pas. Alors, c'est pas nous qui avons demandé puis qui a cédulé quand les agressions américaines t'apportaient. Donc, on les subit présentement et on va riposter le mieux qu'on peut.
Merci. Monsieur Rousseau, question pour vous.
Oui.
Bon, de ce que je comprends, c'est que votre collègue, Mme Burke, a dit qu'il y a eu des conversations avec M. McKinnon par rapport à ça. Pouvez-vous m'en dire un petit peu plus, là, comment ça s'est déroulé, puis pourquoi, là, soudainement, on fait une sortie pour dire, là, ça va pas assez loin?
Écoute, on l'a écouté ce matin, M. McKinnon, à la radio. Il a été interviewé en même temps que Mme Bruske. Si on prend les deux entrevues, Mme Bruske, alors si on prend les deux entrevues côte à côte, on voit que M. McKinnon, il semble être un peu frileux. Il semble ne pas vouloir annoncer de quoi de concret. Il dit qu'on va avoir quelque chose de calibré. comme réponse. Écoutez, vous savez, c'est en ce moment que les travailleurs et les travailleuses ont besoin de savoir ce que le gouvernement va faire. Il se présente en élection, on vient d'en parler. Qu'est-ce que vous allez faire? Ces gens-là, tout le monde va voter. Pour qui? On va voter pour les gens qui vont nous donner le plus qu'est-ce qu'on a le droit de recevoir. Hein? C'est pas compliqué. Alors, M. McKinnon, le message est très clair. En ce moment, on a besoin de propositions concrètes pour les supports qui seront donnés aux travailleurs et aux travailleuses. Ça, c'est le plus important qu'on a besoin d'avoir en ce moment. Oui.
Yeah, more regionally, I'm Union Express, manufacturing in this area in Hawkesbury has been on the downturn for decades now with the aerospace. A lot of aerospace companies moving out, logging obviously has been more challenging. This is just another hit to the manufacturing sector here. What do you have to say to people who want to stay in this field, stay in these types of industries in a region that's really having a hard time keeping these factories open?
I think we see that in many smaller communities right across the country, right? That especially where there is one industry that's dominant within a specific community, and that when that industry is under attack, we worry about the emptying out of those communities. So this particular area is no different than many other communities that we see across the country. We need to change our economic model. The time for major investments in infrastructure to build up capacity is now. Our federal government needs to really seriously rethink how we are structured. We need to seriously make sure that we rebuild that east-west link, that northern link, that we rebuild ports, roads, port infrastructure, and we need to find new ways to diversify our economy. We need to be able to keep people in the communities that they grew up in. I hear this all the time from workers. Am I going to have a job in this community 10 years down the road? Does my family have an opportunity to stay here? We need housing. We need investments in strong public services to keep families in those communities as well. So right now, what we're looking for is a new economic vision for Canada. We need labor, we need employers and all levels of government at the table to actually unpack what that looks like.
Say a few words on that.
I'm not sure about what you said about the aerospace. That might be very well true. I don't know, but I can tell you that Ivaco Rolling Mills has been well established in this community since 1971. There's a lot of families that went from one generation to another. It's well implemented. It's a sound business. It's very, very solid. If it wasn't for the tariffs, there was nothing to believe that this industry was at risk whatsoever not to survive several more decades. So this is the biggest manufacturing employer in the region. It employs about 600-700 people. And it's a known fact that for every job in manufacturing, the trickle-down effect, there's 5 more jobs created. So we're talking about 3,500 people in the community at the minimum and affected by this. And this would be devastating to the livelihoods and not only the people that work there, but to the people in the surrounding areas. So, I mean, we have no reason to believe that this is not just business as usual in a passing by industry and manufacturing. There's a lot of interest for a lot of people to keep this place alive, right?
Yeah, recently, I mean, like a place like Tomar is picking up more work, right? They've recently secured new contracts with lots of employment and stuff going on there. But does it speak to a little bit of problematic and like instability? Like we have all these workers here now. Where do they go? Right? It's just kind of like, yes, Ivaco has been a stalwart in this community for, like you said, 70 years or since the 70s. But where do they go now? Right? If they want to keep working in this industry with the skills that they have, it looks like they have to move out, right? And that's a difficult thing for people to do.
We're not there yet. I mean, right now we're seeing the first initial effects of these tariffs. I can't tell you where we're going to be after April 2nd should these bigger tariffs kick in. But for the moment, we're not going to get too much ahead of ourselves. But obviously, we are concerned. Yes, there's a lot of worriness. Obviously, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't. But yeah, so
But the reason why you asked that question is exactly why we need those government supports now, because we need to be able to keep workers connected to their workplaces. Because hopefully this is a short-term issue and we will still need those workers in the future, right? Meaning that we need to have furlough programs, we need to have work sharing programs, we need to have strong social safety net support to keep the workers in the communities that they currently live in. So we need government to step up now to announce those measures and to get that happening.
Un exemple que je vais tout simplement ajouter, c'est que Ivaco, là, on sait que c'est une compagnie de métal, d'acier, qui est de haute précision. Ça prend 4 mois pour former quelqu'un, une nouvelle employée. Nous avons quelqu'un ici, ça fait 1 mois qu'elle est entrée. OK? 4 mois de formation. Et après ces 4 mois de formation-là, ça prend 1 an avant que la personne puisse être complètement indépendante. La perte que ça représente, c'est le gouvernement qui doit reconnaître que c'est une richesse qu'on ne peut pas perdre. Alors, on a besoin de mesures, comme Mme Bruske vient de dire, on a besoin de mesures concrètes pour s'assurer que non seulement que ces emplois-là vont être conservés, mais qu'on va avoir des plans durables, soit en investissant dans l'infrastructure ou dans la diversification de l'économie verte, etc., etc. C'est ça. Il y a beaucoup d'enjeux qui sont en cause en ce moment.
Parlez-nous un peu de l'impact, justement, pour les employés, puis comment ça se vit en ce moment. On l'a entendu en anglais, mais en français, that would be great aussi. Juste l'impact.
L'impact, c'est beaucoup d'anxiété, puis de l'inconnu. Comme le reporter a dit, c'est-à-dire on n'est pas dans un point où des décisions concrètes vont être prises par nos employés. Puis on connaît nos membres, puis je connais les membres d'Avrodville aussi, où j'ai travaillé avec les autres comités de négociation. Sont ici du monde qui sont intelligents, je veux dire. Ils ne laisseront pas de choses comme ça ici, les mettre à terre. Puis, on a du feedback des autres, certains qui sont incertains, on est tous humains, mais la force est là quand même. Puis, moi, je ne serais pas ici aujourd'hui, Jocelyn, tout le monde ici, comme monsieur ici l'a dit, là, si on ne croyait pas là-dedans. Ça veut dire, on a déjà eu d'autres enjeux avant, ça, ce n'est un autre, et on va vivre à travers. Ça, je suis bien content d'avoir.
Vous allez continuer à faire du lobbying, puis tout ça, j'imagine aussi pour essayer de faire en sorte que ça ait une place de choix quand même chez les gouvernements pour que le gouvernement vous soutienne. Fait que j'imagine que vous allez continuer ça.
Oui, écoute, pas encore référence à M. Poilievre, parce que ce qu'il disait, il y a eu des, je vais parler un peu en anglais, il a dit qu'il y a eu des amendements qui sont faits à l'assurance emploi là, pour nos employés à long terme, si quelque chose arriverait. Mais je me rappelle aussi, on est un peu en arrière, quand il était dans le gouvernement de Stephen Harper, il a voulu faire des amendements pour l'EI, puis il avait voté contre. Ça fait que c'est un peu, il se contredit un peu, là. Mais c'est certain qu'avec n'importe quel gouvernement qui va être en place, on va vouloir certainement qu'il y ait des accommodations. Pas des accommodations, mais des enhancements, excuse-moi, je m'exprime des fois mieux en anglais, là, pour les travailleurs certains, parce que là comme c'est pas juste une job, c'est 15 jobs en arrière qui vont être affectés. So, c'est certain que...
On that note, sorry, just
Yeah,
you mentioned you were disappointed with the way Polyev carried out because the peer is not letting you know. Have you heard anything from the NDP or Liberals about a visit?
Yeah.
Maybe Richard would...
Yes, I can tell you on that. I was working with my national office and some other folks last week, and Jack Meadseat intended to visit the plant this week, and this was just postponed for now, but there's a likelihood that may happen. And okay, so I just wanted to add to si je peux ajouter un peu, tu as posé la question en français. Il n'y a pas de plan immédiat à cause que les emplois sont quand même des layoffs temporaires, mais je peux juste vous assurer que la relation avec l'employeur est très bonne avec le syndicat. On travaille ensemble, on est en discussion totale sur tous les sujets possibles. On vient de sortir d'une table de négociation où on a eu des négociations fructueuses avec des discussions très cordiales, très professionnelles. La relation est bonne. On se communique ensemble régulièrement. La dernière fois qu'on a eu des tarifs en 2019-20, l'employeur avait mis à pied un corps de travail au complet. Puis on fait juste commencer, comme Larry expliquait tantôt, comment ça prend de temps à former des gens. L'employeur, ça nous a pris 5 ans à se remettre de ça une fois que l'économie a repris en 2022. On a réembauché. On fait juste commencer à sortir de la tête de l'eau. Donc, l'employeur connaît l'importance de promettre à les gens en mise à pied. Ils ne prennent pas ça à la légère. Ils veulent tenir à leur main-d'œuvre le plus possible. Par contre, on ne se fera pas de peur. Cette semaine, il y a 120 personnes en layoff pour une semaine. Il y a 30 postes qui ont été coupés la semaine d'avant, 150 comme qui a été dit. Mais la semaine prochaine, on a au-dessus de 450 travailleurs qui ne travaillent pas. L'usine est fermée. Ils vont être en formation toute la semaine. Il y a question de peut-être un layoff la semaine d'après. Là, il y a des mesures qui sont prises en attente du 2 avril. Le 2 avril, là, il n'y a pas personne qui va se faire de peur. Là. Si on a des tarifs de 75 60 ça va être dévastateur. Nous, l'employeur ne m'a pas communiqué de décisions concrètes. Évidemment, on va évaluer ça à ce moment-là. Puis, je suis certain qu'il y a des gens qui y pensent, là, mais je veux juste dire qu'on travaille ensemble. Ça faisait pas, aussitôt que l'annonce de layoff a été annoncée, j'ai eu un appel de Service Canada qui nous a offert une panoplie de services, de rencontrer les gens puis pour les appuyer, les assister avec la mise à pied, faciliter les applications au chômage, puis tout quoi que ce soit. Donc, c'est déjà en démarche, ça a été transmis aux ressources humaines. Les syndicats locaux, les officiers sont au courant, ils travaillent ensemble. Donc, on fait notre possible pour minimiser l'impact.
Do we have any more questions? Est-ce qu'on a d'autres questions?
One
Yep,
last
go ahead.
sentence. There's a lot of political instability within Canada, pending elections. Tariffs are rippling across industries across Canada. How do you get government right now to listen to what you need and ensure that this remains a top priority for any government going forward?
You know, the frustration workers in this country have right now is that we are focused on the jobs of a few politicians instead of the jobs of thousands of Canadians across this country. We have a tariff threat that's going to be happening on April 2nd. Right now is the time for every single leader of every single party to be thinking about how they're going to support workers. So we know we probably have a federal election 2 minutes from now. Worker priorities and safeguarding our social safety net have to be priority one. So the call out to every single worker that's out there is, as you are listening to people coming to your door, asking for your vote, ask them, what are you prepared to do for me, for the workers in this community, for my community, for my family, and for our country, quite frankly. That is where the focus needs to be right now. Government has the ability to act now before they call an election. They have the ability to make changes to employment insurance before an election is called, or even during the term of an election. So the time is now, we cannot wait.
If I can just add- Sorry.
Oh, and
If I can just add something,
Excuse-moi.
it's a challenge as well, also on all, I mean, across the political spectrum, especially, we had an interview actually on CTV not too long ago where Mark Carney said that there was no use for a steel industry in Canada. So it is a challenge to get them to listen when our acting prime minister right now, and this is before he was prime minister, that he would say something like that is totally absurd. You know, the steel industry is part of the identity of any nation. It's what we built on, and now it's a world market, and we're being attacked on it. So the fact that he would say that it's concerning, but I mean we're resilient people. We'll get the message across. So.
En français aussi, s'il vous plaît.
Oui.
Ça serait apprécié. Merci. De ce que vous venez de dire justement à mon collègue.
Oh, OK. Oui. Excusez.
Non, pas trop.
Non, il y a eu une entrevue sur, je crois que c'est CTV, de semaine passée, ce que M. Carney a dit qu'il n'y avait pas d'utilité pour l'industrie de l'acier au Canada. Et je crois que c'est pas correct qu'il ait dit une chose de même, c'est certain. L'industrie de l'acier, en étant aussi, je pense que le manufacturing est 10% du GDP. Steel and aluminum représente 1%, mais quand même, le numéro est gros quand même. C'est toi qui es un économiste, mais des fois, les numéros représentent juste une chose, une réalité dans la société. Il y a des enjeux à faire, surtout au milieu du spectrum politique, je peux dire en français. Mais notre monde du côté syndicaliste, tout ça est fort, et puis on a nos numéros et nos enjeux et nos infos à apporter à Ottawa. Ça va être, c'est un enjeu, ça va être dur, mais on va conquérir.
Merci. Yay.
Merci beaucoup.